So these 4 verses, 3 of them pertain to one story about a monk cutting some plants. It's a very minor thing. But he was feeling very remorseful, so he confessed to another monk. That is the practice. So the other monk said, "What is this? How does it matter?" So to show it didn't matter, usne aur kaat. So when Buddha heard about him, he advised them with these verses that there is no reason to cut them. Without any reason to destroy them is not good. So very beautiful analogy were given.
So yatha dukkha atthamevanu kantati samanyam dupparamathan nirayanu pakati.
कुशोदन कुशाग्रास यथा जैसे दुख वहित है तो गलत तरीके से अगर घास को भी गलत तरीके से घास को ब्लेड में पकड़ेंगे हथन एवं अनुपंथी हाथ काट देते हैं। समन्वयम दुख परमत्थन, तो इसी तरह से अगर मॉन्क को समन्वय में जो मॉन्क बनना है उसको ठीक तरह से नहीं पकड़ोगे, गलत पकड़ोगे मेरिया को काट रखी है, हेल्दी और ले जाएगी। सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग एडवाइस।
यं किंचित् शिथिलं कमं संकिलीठ च यवतं संकसरं ब्रह्मचर्यं न तम होती महफलम।
कंटिन्यूएशन में यंग की किंचित, जो भी शिथिला मतलब शिथिल है, ऐसे लैक्स काम कर रहा है, कमम समकिलिठन से यम वतन, और जो इसके समकिलिठ मतलब जो गलत मतलब जिनमें क्लेष्ट है, जिनमें कुछ इम्प्योरिटी है, जिसके व्रत जो है, जिसमें रिजर्वेशन जो है वो भी इम्प्योर है। संकसरम ब्रह्मचर्य, जिसको कि ब्रह्मचर्य मतलब होली लाइफ के बारे में डाउट ही है, पता नहीं क्या है ये सब। नतम होती महत्फलम, फल नहीं मिलने वाला है ज्यादा इस बात।
कायरा चे कायरे अध्ययनम ढले मेना पराखामे शिथिलो ही परिबद्धवज्जो धियो आकिराते भज्जम।
कायरा कोई भी से कायरा देना, कुछ भी काम करता है, दल्लम में स्ट्रॉन्ग तरीके से, मतलब पूरा दृढ़ता से पराक्रम करो। वन शुड डू वर्क विगरसली। शिथिलो ही परिबद्ध, जो मॉन्क भी ऐसे लैक्स है, शिथिल है, धियो आकर तेरा जब वो हल्दी इकट्ठी करता है, क्रिएट्स मोर ऑफ प्रॉब्लम। So even for a monk, we should do things vigorously, not in a lax way.
स्टोरी है उसका, it seems to have implications beyond the paragraph.
ये तो रूल्स बना रखे थे ना भगवान ने कि किसी भी पेड़ को नहीं काटना है, तो इट्स ए पार्ट ऑफ ओवरऑल इकोलॉजिकल अवेयरनेस ऑफ द एंड द पीपल हु रियलाइजेस द लाइफ प्रोसेस, एंड then accordingly these verses have been given, which are not just about this, they are essentially about not being serious about things. उसने कहा ना कि पेड़ काटने में क्या होता है, मैं भी काट के दिखाता हूँ। They were taking it lightly. So what he is trying to say is, don't take things lightly. Reflect upon them and accordingly. Basically, that is the point being made here, repeatedly. That action should be done with proper consideration and not in a kind of careless manner. That I think seems to be the purport of all these three. That whatever you do, do it carefully, don't do it carelessly. Do it with full energy, full understanding.
Or just with plants, or my mind is going to the implications on, use of plants, animals, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if, and this is something I wanted to ask you for a long time. तो ये देवदत्त वाला सारा वेजिटेरियन वाला मामला था, but setting that aside, plants में भी life है, etc. Are there other references in other places on how Buddha views this whole thing?
See, Buddha was never an extremist. So he always followed a middle path. So even non-violence, he didn't take it to extreme. Always took it. He never told the kings, "Kyun marte ho?" All the big kings were his disciples. Bimsar, then Ajatashatru became his disciple, then Prasenjit became his disciple, and they keep on hurting each other. Although they were relations, I think Mama Bhanje or something of that kind they were. So he never told them this कि मारना पीटना अच्छी बात नहीं है, या उससे मरना को नहीं रखना चाहिए. Always believed in middle path. So when there is a clash between, there's a, I think some legend that he once one of the soldiers became a monk. Then the king protested and he made a rule Nobody, no soldier has to be made a monk. Because they should remain on their duty. Because there is a kind of importance of social structure, and that social structure, everybody has his duty, and some duties are so crucial that you cannot compromise on them. You cannot say, man, if somebody is out monk, तो उस राजा की आर्गुमेंट थी कि सारे मेरे सिपाही monk बन गए तो देश का क्या होगा? For a king, it's not necessary to become a monk. So you follow but you become a Dhamma person and follow the king. तो कहते हैं धर्मराज का एक धर्मराज हमारे हिंदू ट्रेडिशन में किसी और को कहते हैं, but made that kind of concept of Dhamma king. That's why Ashok is called Dhamma Raja. In rest of the Southeast Asia, Ashok is never mentioned by name. Dhamma Raja के नाम पर नहीं जाना. So he gave an example that this is how we should be. So even violence, he didn't abdicate it fully. That's why he is criticized. कि देखो महावीर ने तो complete अहिंसा लगा, इन्होंने नहीं लगा. That was his way of seeing the requirement from societal point of view. Whenever there was war, he never justified it. He never told a soldier कि तुम मार रहे हो तुमको स्वर्ग मिलेगा. There's nothing doing. You're killing, you're going to face the consequences. And he tried to prevent war actually between Shakya and Volkolia, उसके neighbors जो थे उनमें war हो गई on some water river. And he prevented it. Once he succeeded, second time he didn't succeed. And they all died. Okay. Similarly about vegetarianism. On the issue, when there was a conflict between two demanding situations. One was that monks should not choose between foods. Second was that people should not kill animals. So he compromised on that by saying that monks should make sure and it should be announced to the, because he said if you make a rule that monks will not take food offered by some people just because it is non-vegetarian, then those people will be denied the merit of making offering to a monk. And they will always feel there will be negativity created in the society. So he said the regulation should be that if they need food for themselves, not specifically for you. So the regulation was made that an animal should not be killed specifically because a monk is coming to. Therefore, they didn't accept usually going to meals at other places. And therefore, whenever they went to meals to anybody's places, that was the regulation. But if they are going on arms round and people are giving food, they would take. So that's how the conflicting requirements were. The middle path is struck.
But setting monks aside, what was his this thing for ladies?
Just clearly, the Samma Ajivo clearly lays out what are the livelihoods which people should not follow. One of them, two of them, what was their livelihoods? Trading in poison, selling alcohol, trading in animals for slaughter, and selling meat. So it's quite obvious what is the implication of that. So he tried to create a societal order where this will move, and the society will move from present state towards a state where they would not be killing animals. But he didn't strike a blow and said all social order is bad and destroy them all and create them. Tried to change the social order in a manner without upsetting the harmony in the society. So that's his way. Of course, one can always criticize.
It's interesting because you remember अभी tricycle में थोड़ा आया था ना बीच में myths about उसमें ये भी था that it is a myth that he did not propagate vegetarianism.
Yeah. Because he did it indirectly. To lay people, he always said it. They were among the weapons sale, for example. You said anybody selling weapons is not a proper livelihood. But if weapons are made by the king for himself, that is fine. See the distinction, If the king makes weapons for his army and for protection of the people, that is fine. So it's a very delicate balance to see that the social order is not disrupted. But yet it got disrupted. After Ashoka, it got disrupted. People were not careful. Of course, there are so many theories about it. That's besides the point.
What became of the social order after Ashoka?
Because the empire became too big. No? And as long as he was there, he was a kind of a very control. He had tremendous control over people. Partly initially because of his fear, and later on because of his dhamma and the kind of influence he wielded. And then one of his sons became the one who was very popular. He became a monk in Mahinda. He went to Sri Lanka to propagate Buddhism. His daughter went there. So his another son, who was made a regent in a far off place. After Buddha died, the Brahmins plotted it and used the general and they killed that person. And there was chaos. They plotted and got that son of Ashoka killed. He was not so careful, whatever, I don't know. We don't know much. But this is known generally historically. And then the empire could not be sustained. In due course it fell off. Some parts fell out and some parts fell out. So there are historians who believe that all this happened because of Buddha's teachings. So they are not suitable for it.
But Buddha himself predicted from this.
Yeah. So people can't see that. Now if you look at it from a limited perspective, then you think things should keep on going, improving. So growth, industry में growth होती जानी चाहिए, अरे कब तक होगी यार? Someday will come to stop. It cannot be infinite growth for all the times to come. Someday it will stop. The person who has vision, he can see. This is what's going to happen.
Sorry, can you talk of paradoxical that if Buddha could predict the receding of his own, would he not have, put in a...
That is actually the basic impermanence.
I understand. That's the law of nature.
Even Buddha cannot...
Yes. That's the law of nature. He had some element of control. He had told Anand, of course. That's what Anand is criticized by many of these traditional Buddhists. कि उसको उन्होंने hint भी दिया था that a Buddha has the ability to live for eons, and he didn't catch that hint. And when he announced that I am taking retirement from this world, then he started crying. So then he told him that तुमसे कहा तुम्हारे समझ में नहीं आया. Well, that's all right. It was destined to be that way. People would say it was destined to be that way. But Buddha said कि तुमने नहीं कहा, अब नहीं हो सकता कुछ. Now it is announced, is announced. So these are all anybody's guess. We can't really make much of it. It's beyond our comprehension.
Logic that if Buddha took soldiers and it would not be less people to take care of it. The same logic is applied at a small scale to a family. The family's breadwinner becomes a monk. Then the family will also say that
later on, after his son became a monk, he made a condition to take permission. See, when his son became a monk, because उसने पीछे पड़ गया मुझे अपने वो दो विरासत दो, तो उसने कहा मेरी विरासत तो यही है. Then his father protested. ये क्या कर दिया? Said, yeah. You can see admission of mistake by Buddha. So, yes, in future it will not be done.
So this can be construed as admission of...
That's how he set up rules and regulations. He didn't see everything in, whenever he was not 100. There is a statement of his that are you aware of every time of everything? No. If I reflect, then I can be aware, but I am not aware of every time of everything in the world, what is happening in the world. If I want, I can meditate and then know what is happening where, which part of the world. Not constantly. So we are disposed to that effect. Not constantly aware of everything which is happening in the world. Within me, what is happening, I know. So the regulations were made. When he made the regulations, किसी भी हाउस होल्डर को बगैर परमिशन के माता बच्चे को माता पिता, and that continues even now, that a young person will not be given ordination till his parents approve of it. They have to get permission from them.
वाइफ का भी है ना दरअसल?
I think so. मुझे वो नहीं मालूम, वाइफ के बारे में मुझे मालूम नहीं. But parents का है क्योंकि one of the young boys when he was going, वे जा रहा था हर्ष, तो जब तक माता जी ने परमिशन नहीं दी वो नहीं गया. They told him there's nothing to do. Said there was well off, everything is fine. They may be whatever well off. Regulation is there, you should get permission. Only when she permits you, then you can come. So he waited for 1 or 2 years. So last.
अकत्तम दुकत्तम सेरो कच्छा तपत्ति दुकत्तम
कट्टम टी के ऊपर डॉट होता है
कट्टम दुकत्तम सेरो गम
नानुतपति अकतंग दुक्कटंग से दुक्कटंग मतलब जो गलत काम है उसको ना ही किया जाए तो श्रेय है वो. अच्छा. पच्च तपति दुक्कतम, जो गलत काम करता है बाद में दुख पाता है. कथंच सुकतम से सुकृत है, जो अच्छा काम है करना श्रेय है. यम कत्वा नानु तप करने के बाद में आपको तपन नहीं होती, परेशानी. That is it. And the story is of a kind which you might be seeing even today. A woman suspecting that her husband is having an affair with the maid, and then locking her up in a room and cutting off her nose and ears. Sounds a bit too gory. And then the people knowing and Buddha admonishing them that it's not proper to do any kind of evil under any circumstances, not even in secret, because everything will be known in the end, and naturally the law of karma will operate on it. So that is it. Maybe I will go. इधर आया. They are not able to break free of ego for so long.
आज शायद एक
आज हो जाएगा. आप इधर आइए पीटर. Takes time. With all.
सो हमने पिछली बार मैनिफेस्टेशंस ऑफ पेन बॉडी देखी थी, किस तरह से वो अपने आप को प्रतीत करती हैं. Eckhart describes, he has a whole section on what he calls presence as a means of, as one of, as I understand, as one of the means of, in inverted commas, breaking free from the pain body. Presence वाला जो chapter है उसमें एक story है which I'll like to read out as it is, and then we can reflect on that. So for those of us who have the book, it's on page 164. He says, a woman in her 30s
came to see me. As she greeted me, I could sense the pain behind her polite and superficial smile. She started telling me her story, and within 1 second, her smile had changed into a grimace of pain. Then she began to sob uncontrollably. She said she felt lonely and unfulfilled. There was much anger and sadness. As a child, she had been abused by a physically violent father. I saw quickly that her pain was not caused by her present life circumstances, but by an extraordinarily heavy pain body. Her pain body had become the filter through which she viewed her life situation. She was not yet able to see the link between the emotional pain and her thoughts, being completely identified with both. She could not see yet that she was feeding the pain body with her thoughts. In other words, she lived with the burden of a deeply unhappy self. At some level, however, she must have realized that the pain originated within herself, that she was a burden to herself. She was ready to awaken, and this is why she had come. I directed the focus of her attention to what she was feeling inside her body and asked her to sense the emotion directly, instead of through the filter of her unhappy thoughts, her unhappy story. She said she had come expecting me to show her the way out of her unhappiness, not into it. Reluctantly, however, she did what I asked her to. Tears were rolling down her face and her whole body was shaking. At this moment, this is what you feel, I said. There is nothing you can do about the fact that at this moment, this is what you feel. Now, instead of wanting this moment to be different from the way it is, which adds more pain to the pain that is already there, is it possible for you to completely accept that this is what you feel right now? She was quiet for a moment. Suddenly, she looked impatient as if she was about to get up and said angrily, "No, I don't want to accept this." I asked her, "Who is speaking? You or the unhappiness in you? Can you see that your unhappiness is about being unhappy, is just another layer of unhappiness?" She became quiet again. I am not asking you to do anything. All I am asking is that you find out whether it is possible for you to allow those feelings to be there. In other words, and this may sound strange, if you don't mind being unhappy, what happens to the unhappiness? Don't you want to find out? She looked puzzled briefly, and after a minute or so of sitting silently, I suddenly noticed a shift in her energy field. She said, "This is weird. I am still unhappy, but now there is a space around it. It seems to matter less." This was the first time I heard somebody put it like that there is a space around my unhappiness. That space, of course, comes when there is inner acceptance of whatever you are experiencing in the present moment. I didn't say much else, allowing her to be with the experience. Later, she came to understand that the moment she stopped identifying with the feeling, the old painful emotion that lived with her, the moment she put her attention on it directly without trying to resist it, it could no longer control her thinking and so become mixed up with the mentally constructed story called the unhappy me. another dimension had come into her life that transcended her personal past, the dimension of presence. Since you cannot be unhappy without an unhappy story, this was the end of her unhappiness. It was also the beginning of the end of her pain body. Emotion in itself is not unhappiness. Only emotion plus an unhappy story is unhappiness. So this was the story, and I thought we'd pause here and perhaps reflect on this, the last two lines, which is emotion in itself is not unhappiness. Only emotion plus an unhappy story is unhappiness. And I had myself some difficulty with sort of separating the notions of emotion, unhappiness, and so on. And I was wondering, Darsab, if you would reflect on that, or yeah, any of that. Yes, any of that.
No, I think from what my personal experience is that I think emotion, I'm not sure what Eckhart means by the word emotion, because there are lots of similar connotations to emotions, feelings, emotions, and different all of these things. I think there was once we were discussing in our session also that there is this real physical mind body response to a situation, which is what it includes mind. So the mind and the body complex together is responding to a situation, and if we start to see it, we see it as solid and real. It's there. For example, if we have some strong emotion, we can see the one aspect of emotion in the body and the other aspect of the emotion running through the mind. The body would be having strong sensations, it could be fear, it could be some other stuff, and there will be strong storyline going in the body along with what we call mental content. Mental content could be of unease, mental content could be of uncomfortableness. So it's a both body and mind's real response. And then there is what I call an abstract layer on it, which is why I call it abstract, which is the story, which is the artificialness created around it, which I think Rodney also says, we create a story and we create a storyteller, and the storyteller is that abstract stuff. So when I look at it, because if you start to see that part, it actually goes away. You won't find it there. But if you start to see the body and the mind, if you just start to reflect on it, they seem to be there, right? So as far as I have tried to reflect and investigate on it, is that there will be a response to a situation from mind and the body. When we create an identification with that response, on top of it we create an artificial storyteller, which is the artificial I, or an abstract I, or something which is not real. It has been created based on the identification. And I think that is what we generally call suffering. That is what we generally call unhappiness. And if we don't do that, the body and the mind will still have that response, but there will be a space around it. That's what I think that Reddy was saying. That you would see this body and the mind responding to that situation, but it will not seem to affect you, because you is an artificial construct that you created through identification. So,
yeah, you can put the whole thing as an experience in first level. The suffering should be understood. That we've discussed many times. What does it mean, suffering should be understood? That when you experience suffering, then actually at that time you accept the event of suffering. And when there is no story behind it, there's nothing to sustain it. It's like a wind which arose and passed away. When there is a story to sustain it, then it keeps on feeding. Because you are identifying with the story. So emotion arising will pass away. If suffering arises because for every emotion you create a story. उसने ऐसा किया, ऐसा करना नहीं चाहिए था.
So one question I have is that at least this is what I have done, is when this storytelling starts in brain, what happens is we believe in that story, and once we believe in the story, it actually is a loop. Right?
Yeah.
And so once I did was that I said, I don't believe you, this story which is happening in the brain. And the story continues and you say, okay, you can continue, I don't need to believe you. And so that actually creates a little bit of space.
Yeah, it makes you disidentify. Once you disidentify with things, then there is a possibility of wisdom to operate. As long as we are completely identified, then there is no possibility of any wisdom to operate.
just want to understand when you said you will say that you don't believe it, does it mean that you were saying that I don't believe that it exists, or I don't, for example, अगर mind में कुछ
Yeah, I'll give an example. कि story अगर कह रही है कि I have to say face somebody and talk to somebody. The story is telling कि बहुत रिस्की मामला है, तुम फंस जाओगे, तुम कर नहीं सकते. And if you believe it, you fully become that, and it's very difficult to face the situation. And if you just say that I don't believe you, okay, this is bad. But can you let the story also sort of continue if you want to say? You are not applying the force to stop the story. You are saying that you can continue, but I don't believe you.
That is the way of,
right.
once you recognize thoughts as story, that recognition is enough.
Yeah.
ठीक है यार, सोचे जाओ. Then you disidentify with the mind. You have to create some, whatever strikes you, whichever method strikes you, whichever word strikes you, to disidentify. Basic idea है कि you see story as a story, not as reality. Once you see story as a story, then it will fall off of the courses. Within no time it will fall off. It is lost. You refuse to give it energy.
So, listening to you this talk by Adam Watts, he used two phrases that I was quite interested. He said that, if you start to really reflect, start to see in your own consciousness or in yourself, whatever, you see that thinker of the thoughts is just another thought. The feeler of the feelings is just another feeling. The experiencer of the experience is part of the experience. I actually, found it very powerful way to maybe describe anatta. When we give, as you were saying, when we really believe in the thinker or the feeler or the experiencer, and we create a solidity around that self, which is the subject versus, and we create this sensation of what is being observed versus who is observing. I thought that was very nicely put.
Dhamma is a very beautiful way of putting it. I'm cutting off everything. It says feeling is a mental factor which arises because of conditions. Perception is a mental factor which arises because of conditions. It's not you. You are not feeling. Feeling is feeling itself. So everything is identified as there is a consciousness and there is a mental factor. And those mental factors are 52, for example. There is a constellation of them. And those, under a particular situation, depending on what arises, that chitta gets into turbidity. And you have all kinds of funny things. Once you know for sure it's a mental factor arising, and then you know, these are the conditions because it has arisen. It loses its course immediately. Its course is lost. Then you can reflect, these conditions are पैदा हुआ, I think I should look into those conditions rather than bothering about the arising of a factor, because it will change again, something else will happen tomorrow. So the whole Abhidhamma is basically to cut it off, right? We cut off all the roots of it, of the root thinker and feeler and angry person and anger and everything is a mental factor which arises.
I started to use that in my reflections also, and I think you discussed earlier also, and Eckhart also just tells that slightly different words, but it's the same thing. That when we start to experience or start to reflect on our experience, that for example, if we see some suffering or uncomfortableness or being bored or whatever we call, and we start to say that we just feel, we not try to feel it, or we try to run away from it. Along with that, I started to reflect in that moment. There is the feeler who's feeling it. So rather than focusing on suffering, reflecting or trying to see the sufferer, and you can't grasp it. As soon as you start to reflect on it, as to start see it, it's gone. It's very ephemeral. It's not there, and that starts to put this seed in you. Is that has that ever been real? Has that ever been so solid that you always believed in that? So I think that aspect of looking at the suffering and also looking at the sufferer in you. What is it that is saying that I am suffering? That actually has helped me look those moments, maybe has given another dimension to look at.
So in the section on presence, I think through this narrative, and I'll not use the word story, through this narrative is describe the use of presence, and one of the things that came to me is that even with how Goenkaji helps us do the whole meditation, I think it's about staying with the experience as you feel it. Is exactly what you were saying. So that seems to be one way in which Eckhart is talking about presence. There is another aspect to this presence which he then talks about, and there is another narrative that I'll just read out about that, which is that all individual pain bodies are connected, And this is where it seems to me that he gets into a quasi sort of psychic realm. And I'll read this story out. The restaurant story, yeah, exactly. He gets into quasi psychic realm. And it again left me thinking कि ये मतलब हाँ, किस दिशा में जा रहा है भाई. तो मैं पढ़ता हूँ, देखते हैं और लोगों के क्या उसमें वो आते हैं. So, हम अभी प्रेजेंस वाले चैप्टर में ही हैं, तो ये एक और कहानी इसमें है. ये एकार्ट खुद नरेट कर रहे हैं. और ये कहानी जो आ रही है ये बिल्कुल उस पहली वाली जो महिला के साथ का इंटरेक्शन हुआ, इट सीम्स टू मी दैट क्रोनोलॉजिकली उसके बाद हुआ है ये. I sat down at a table and ordered a meal. There were a few other guests. At a nearby table, there was a middle-aged man in a wheelchair who was finishing his meal. He glanced at me briefly but intensely. A few minutes passed. Suddenly he became restless, agitated, and his body began twitching. Twitch. The waiter came to take his plate. The man started arguing with him. The food was no good. It was dreadful, said the man. Then why did you eat it? Asked the waiter. And that really set him off. He started shouting, became abusive, wild words were coming out of his mouth. Intense, violent hatred filled the room. One could feel that energy entering the cells of one's body, looking for something to latch on to. Now he was shouting at the other guests too, but for some strange reason ignoring me completely, as I sat in intense presence. And in this case, he uses presence with a capital P. I suspected that the universal human pain body had come back to tell me, you thought you defeated me? Look, I am still here. I also considered the possibility that the released energy field left behind after our session, he is referring to the session with a woman, followed me to the restaurant and attached itself to the one person in whom it found a compatible vibrational frequency. That is to say, a heavy pain body. The manager opened the door. Just leave, just leave. The man zoomed out in his electric wheelchair, leaving everyone stunned. 1 minute later he returned. His pain body wasn't finished yet. It needed more. He pushed open the door with his wheelchair, shouting obscenities. A waitress tried to stop him from coming in. He put his chair in fast forward and pinned her against the wall. Other guests jumped up and tried to pull him away. Shouting, screaming and pandemonium followed. A little later a policeman arrived. The man became quiet, was asked to leave and not return. The waitress fortunately was not hurt except for bruises on her legs. When it was all over, the manager came to my table and asked me, half joking, but perhaps feeling intuitively that there was some connection, did you cause all this? That's where the story finishes. My own, yeah.
Does he say further?
No, but he goes on to the next chapter now. And I did wonder what he was getting at, because as I said, it's almost a quasi-psychic thing. From my point of view, there was something very interesting here. There was just one line which I attached to myself, so to say. He talks about this, I sat in intense presence. This almost seems to me like the technique of going back to the breath whenever there is a storm. And in my own experience, and I'm moving away from the story, in my own experience, it's something that it's really stayed with me, and I've used it in the last some time quite a lot, that whenever there is a spike of of emotion or if there is a ghatna, then to just sort of feel the physical body, और वो आपने सत्य पढ़ान में एक बार बताया था, feeling the chair, etc., and that's what I sort of use to remain, to use Eckhart's words, intensely present, and to not start flowing with the storm. Anyway, that was my little digression on this. But I thought the whole thing of attaching of pain bodies, और ये इसका कुछ जिक्र वो पहले भी करते हैं जब वो क्रॉस रोड्स पे दो मोटरिस्ट आते हैं और उनकी टक्कर होती है वगैरह वगैरह. It almost seems to me that there is a quasi-psychic thing at play. And that's fine, and maybe it's my conditioning, but sometimes I find a little sort of resistance to accepting some of these things. But before I move on, is there anything that anybody wants to add to this story, to this narrative, or experiences of this sort?
So my personal take is, I think whether we believe in what he's saying or not believe in what he's saying about the green body following him and kind of causing that pandemonium. At least what I believe, and I was saying was the last one also, that I have used this principle now, which is validating things in my own experiences and leaving other things neither believing nor disbelieving. So maybe he has that intuitive sense which I don't, and which he could sense. So I don't think I make a judgment on whether this is what he's saying is true or completely true, or what he's saying is completely false. But as far as connections are concerned, one can see some connections, one can see some intuitions and experience some bit of intuitions in our own day-to-day life. Some of the things which we call coincidences, but we have that thing at the back of the mind, कि यार ये कैसे हो गया? It can't be just a coincidence. So I'll just leave it at that and say कि मेरे को उतना experience हुआ है, so maybe there could be possibility that there could be more higher levels of intuition that people may have. But I think more than that, I'll just leave it to him and his experiences.
So when we meditate together, have you noticed some change in meditating together and meditating alone? Is it within your experience? So why does it happen? If it is within your experience, why does it happen? Basically because the vibrational field of the place has changed. And at least with you it's common occurrence. When I am interacting with somebody, if the person is not well, I can feel my body getting affected. Sometimes to the extent of having pain. That's basically the result of environment. Like you're breathing polluted air, then it affects your body. In similar manner, living in a polluted environment also matters. If you're, there is a standing instruction, for example, to teachers given. When you meditate and do, when we used to call these young people who are meditators and sit in front of us and you meditate. If the teacher is not careful, you can get into trouble. Many teachers who came to Bihar to conduct courses, and Some of them had to leave in between. To that extent they fell ill because they couldn't, what should I say, be in equanimity under the environment there. So it's a common phenomena, commonly observed phenomena, that if you are in presence of somebody who is very heavily in trouble, you begin to feel the effect of it. When you conduct a meditation, for example, yesterday I conducted a full day workshop for the university students. See that some people had very had very strong sankhara or pain body. And when you're in proximity, it begins to affect you.
So till that point is, to some extent, in the experience of ourselves that even if we don't do, so I think that is what I mean. We can experience some part of it at different levels. Even at for non-meditators also, I think one can easily decipher that in the presence of people who are agitated, you tend to feel.
You also tend to get agitated.
You tend to get agitated. I think it's people may try to intellectualize this, but that is it's a common thing. When in the presence of, for example, some if the environment is saintly, if there is a saint around that, you need to just sit down, you start to feel calmer. And I think what we are saying is in the meditation camps can be felt to some extent, at least from what I can see. But Eckhart claiming that the pain body released by that lady followed him to the restaurant.
No, it is basically the same thing that you got in. That when we are meditating with somebody, the negativity from that person is impinging on you. And if you were not equanimous enough at that time, it affected you.
But just getting then onto
and then if you meditate,
somebody else around.
And when you meditate there, our advice is after you conduct a checking session, you go to your room and meditate, so that you get free from the negativity which you might have inadvertently catched. So when you meditate, you can feel the difference in the state of the well-being immediately. After checking session, you meditate for 15 minutes and you can see that yes, there is a change. And if you don't, and you continue for 1 day, 2 days like that, you start getting upset without knowing kya ho raha hai.
So, few thoughts. People saw a very interesting short movie. This was actually shot in one single take. There was no editing, no two takes.
One for the negative one.
For the positive, yeah. No, so I'm just focusing on the negative side here. There they show almost a sequence of 12, 13, 14 people. How it starts with maybe some argument between a husband and a wife or something at home, and how that person then moves next without any editing. It's a single shot, how that person then next goes, scolds the maid, or how that maid then
Right.
Yes, something like that.
It's a very nicely made. I think it's a 5 minute or 10, 20 minutes, but very. And even while what it shows is very obvious effect, because there at least you are interacting at every stage and convey and sort of passing forward. It's almost like a relay race, where you are passing the baton of negativity to the next person, to the next, and it then comes back and hits you in a cycle. It was very interesting. You should see that actually. I think the rest of us have probably seen that movie. You should look at that. But I think there is more than just that explicit passing on of the negativity. So I'm probably more skeptical than you are on these things, but somehow I didn't find this very surprising. I have had experiences where if you go into a meeting with a negative frame of mind, not any negativity towards the people you are meeting, but completely independent negativity because of something else happening somewhere. I have noticed that, of course, if you exhibit that negativity in the meeting, there will be a response. That is quite obvious. That can be attributed to more physical.
Even implicitly, it will be
Even if you have not actually conveyed anything, still the outcome of that meeting can be different. And
colors the consciousness.
Correct.
It is very subtle.
There is something more than what is explicitly said, which other people somehow pick up. Now, some people will say it's just body language, some will say, as you're saying, it's people are able to pick up the vibrations. I don't know what it is. So, I recently came back from Japan. I was there just to do one meeting. And this was an extremely important meeting. They are probably our biggest customers. And the relationship in the past has not been so great. In the last few years, we've not had a good relationship. So I was initially very apprehensive of how the meeting will go. But at some point, a couple of hours before the meeting, I told myself it does not matter. I am doing my best. And even after that, if the meeting doesn't turn out okay, I am okay with that. And somehow that little switch of the mind changed everything. And then I had a very comfortable meeting. The same people who were frowning last time, they were smiling, and the outcome was brilliant. Now, I can say I was very well prepared, I did a lot of hard work, but it's still not easy to explain the entire outcome just based on preparation. It's also in what mental state you attended that meeting. Now, I can say I was probably exuding more positivity and they reciprocated, or was there something more, I don't know. It's very hard to tell. Very hard.
But it is quite evident that if you go with a positive frame of mind, in any situation, that positivity will impinge on others even if you don't explicitly say anything.
Something about
So if you carry a negativity, advertently or inadvertently, it will affect others. If somebody is very susceptible, it's like carrying infection. If the immune system of a person is very bad, they will immediately catch infection and fall ill.
So when he talks about this person intensely looking at him for a brief pause, and then suddenly something happened, it's very hard to imagine what could he have done to suddenly convey that negativity. Was that just an exchange of glance and that person saw something in the eyes or felt something? It's very hard to verbalize what might have happened.
No, I think most of these stories that really gel. For example, most of it is about in the presence of your own mental state in the mental presence is not limited to you. It's interacting with the people around you. That is what the whole thing is about, and that's how we can state all the things that we can meditate together to feel better, or stuff like that. When you are in a mental state, you actually don't limit it to yourself. You affect others also, and which affects the outcomes also. What I could not maybe being critical enough could not get from that story was Eckhart being such a strong consciousness of himself.
So how did he even carry the infection?
Right. And see, you getting affected in somebody's presence, yes, I can feel it, senses, and maybe in some experience you can have it. But not getting affected, but still carrying it. Not getting affected by the last session, but still carrying it and passing it on to somebody else without getting affected. So if we are getting affected, then we believe that because I was also affected, it became a relay in that story. That lady was affected, then Eckhart became affected, and then Eckhart could affect the other guy.
I would like to use an analogy. And again, I don't understand these things too much. But the analogy I would use is there are people who get infected and there are carriers. I think if there is, in fact, I think by the virtue of his being what he is probably able to pick infections a lot more than others, because he's reached to a level where he's able to pick these vibes probably a lot more than others. So he picks them up. Now his own equanimity may not be getting affected because of his strong immunity, but he can still be a carrier. This is just some framework I'm using.
Yeah.
So you can carry it. He's not getting infected, but by just because you're carrying it, someone else can get it.
So and then the first
There
part
are
I said,
stories, for example, I'll just tell you. Buddha was asked, why do you meditate every day? He says, I don't remember the exact Pali words, which is essentially translated as to remove the fatigue of the body. And the fatigue used to arise basically because all kinds of people, and I think somewhere he says, so many people come and keep on talking and interacting with me. So that affects the body. Just to clean it up. It will not affect the mind, it will affect the body. So mentally you may be pretty fine, but your body may have been affected by that infection from this rat.
A few times we discovered later that you had to go to a hospital on Sunday. So sometimes I wonder whether we caused someone.
Actually, I discussed that.
I think 2 or 3 times it happened that we learned later that you had some problem on Sunday afternoon. Sometimes wonder whether we are contributing to
infection.
It cannot happen.
carrying our bodies of wind.
It cannot happen without my desiring it.
So we are actually helping in your evolution by transmitting the infection.
That makes us feel less good.
I actually
Surprisingly, whenever I went to hospital in the last 3 times, I mean, of course, I've never been earlier, I've been once earlier, I was extremely happy. Very much at peace and no issue at all, not even an iota. There was physical distress, of course. I was not at all kind of mentally upset. So that must be your contribution.
I had a fairly intense experience last week, which I'll share. So after our session, by afternoon, I got the news that there was a very close friend of mine who was living in England, who was in India, and we were to have met in the next few days. So he, his wife and his 9-year-old daughter had met with a terrible accident just outside Chandigarh, and the couple died. And the daughter was in hospital in Chandigarh. So I got this news about 3, 4, and we were of course extremely close. So I was getting ready to leave for Chandigarh. Ultimately, for many reasons, I and another friend, we went the next day. So we were at the hospital the entire day. We were not, and the girl was in ICU, so there was no chance of reaching her, etc. But one was in that mahal. And we returned by evening of Monday. All of Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, I felt very consistent, would I call it physical discomfort? I was on the edge all the time. And a couple of my colleagues could sense that. They asked me, wait, kya hua? And there was a feeling of unsettledness. Now, that was the experience. The death, obviously, there was remorse, but it did not really affect me in a very emotional sense. And I'm wondering if it was in fact, and I reflected a lot on this, the only, and the feelings, what I was feeling was extremely intense. But because I was able to catch it, कि हाँ यार कुछ बदला है. Therefore, it did not often manifest itself, though there were a few incidents of anger and of impatience. That those were the very distinct symptoms of this unsettledness. And my own sense is that it was the day at the hospital that some infections were picked up. But I thought I'll share that it was extremely strong. I think what's happened is as a result of much of the work that we do together in meditation, I'm not sort of so much on the edge normally. But those 2-3 days, I really spent extremely on the edge. And I asked myself if it was really to do with the death, and I don't think it was so much the reaction to the death as I think the time that I spent at the hospital and just what was picked up from that. But it also resonates very closely. I think that's where I also use the presence thing a lot, and I had to because the whole thing was so strong that. और कई बार उसमें slip हुआ भी because the mindfulness is not consistent. But
see, what happens at a deep subconscious level is not easy to decipher. Consciously we may be mindful, but deep inside there may be an element of resistance. That creates a subtle effect. It may not be immediately evident. It may take its own time to do that. Because we are not able to penetrate very deep into the mind. It has so many layers that even our awareness may not be able to really penetrate there. So, once you get knack of the wisdom, unsettled है तो भी ठीक है, चलता है.
It took me some time to get to this. कि हाँ यार ये unsettledness उठ रही है. I think what was very strong, that's how I think as a result of all the.
It's an anguish, no? If you lose somebody, it's an anguish, unspoken anguish. When something very strong hits, even on an ocean, if you throw a big stone, there will be a tsunami भी आते ही है ocean में.
How you make an effort to be more calm or more detached to that event?
Yeah, देखो, again I'll again say this that I my own, and I reflected on this. My own sense is it was not so much the death as I think the infection from the hospital. That's what I think it is. I could sense कि कुछ बदला है और कुछ गड़बड़ है. You know, that was the predominant thing. I think that awareness to me has been a big gift of what we've all done together. तो ये पकड़ में तो आ गई कुछ हलचल हो रही है. ये तो कुछ समय बाद स्ट्राइक हुआ कि यार one has been there and so on. But ये तो बहुत पकड़ में आ गया कि बड़ी गड़बड़ हो रही है. और शुरू में तो मैनिफेस्ट हो गई. क्योंकि शुरू में पकड़ा नहीं था यार कि कुछ हो रहा है, तो गुस्सा आ रहा था ऑन एंड स्लाइटेस्ट ट्रिगर यार, वेरी स्लाइट ट्रिगर. पानी ठंडा नहीं था, दैट बिकेम अ ट्रिगर खाने के टेबल पे, स्लाइटेस्ट ट्रिगर. एंड आफ्टर अ फ्यू आवर्स वाज थिंकिंग वो क्या रहा है. इट टुक अ फ्यू आवर्स. उसको पकड़ लिया फिर तो आ गई. ये हॉस्पिटल से हुआ ये तो बहुत बाद में मुझे ख्याल आया कि यार
सराउंडेड बाय. जो मुझे याद है जब मैं बिहार में पहला मेडिटेशन कोर्स किया था, वेरी इंटेंसिव सिटिंग विद पीपल एंड टू द एक्सटेंट कि जो आए थे साधक जो बैठे में उससे बात मेडिटेशन करते हैं साथ में अलग अलग बुला के, बिकॉज फुल वेदर मन शॉल वाल ओढ़ रखे थे पूरी वैसी याद में सडनली फंड की एकदम गर्म हो रही है, आग के सामने आ गया. किसी ने आग जला दी, देखा एक आदमी बैठा है सामने, उसके आग निकल रही है. सेंस फायर कमिंग आउट. Then after the course we went to search for a place where to set up center. किरण बेदी का मेडिटेशन सेंटर बनना था, ठीक है, मैंने देखा. Then we went to see a adjoining place, उसको दिखाया, which was their hospital. The moment I entered there, so hesitated. हाँ, मैडम क्या है ये? उसको कुछ नहीं कहा कि मेरे को बहुत अनकंफर्टेबल लग रहा है। सीधे जी वहाँ हॉस्पिटल है, तो ये कौन है? ये पेशेंट्स है ना, दे आर ऑल ड्रग एडिक्ट्स, इसको ट्रीट करते हैं ना। अब यहाँ ध्यान केंद्र होगी। उस समय तो खैर फिर वहाँ नहीं बनाया, कहीं और बनाया। As the destiny would have it, we had eventually shifted there. And now, after so many years, I mean, within a few months of meditation there, the whole environment changed. Anybody non-meditator also going into that ward can feel ये जगह अलग है और बाकी जगह अलग है. So there is a subtle effect of vibrations and the environment. So if you treat the environmental pollution of the kind which is not measurable by the अभी इस तरह के इंस्ट्रूमेंट नहीं बने हैं, बन जाएंगे.
Interesting incident I would say, this is very recent. Sometimes it's difficult to relate to environment. For example, that we taken की जहाँ पर ड्रग एडिक्शन है और वो है, या फिर एनवायरमेंट जहाँ पर the remorse going on, how it will affect you. Recently, I went to a ceremony, ceremony, and maybe it was I feel that it was more of me than people around it. The ceremony with everybody is like enjoying, happy and enjoying, but I think after a couple of hours, and very uncharacteristically on something very minute, I got angry, and it was primarily about, it was very late. It was getting very late, and I was eager here. Chalo यहाँ पे. And for a very slight thing, I think we had a small argument, me and my wife, and we left. I said, इतनी भी बड़ी कोई बात नहीं हुई थी. It was such a small thing. Why did I was just trying to reflect. क्यों आया हूँ? And I could not see any reason. Maybe I thought I was thinking a lot about or it was just the environment. The environment was, it's not necessarily emotion negative way. There also people had strong emotions at that time.
It's not only the environment, it's our attitude towards the environment.
Right.
If I don't like it,
Yeah.
then obviously it will affect me. Because that place is full of strong vibrations of a particular kind. Those I may not like. Even though that may be pleasing to some people, it may not be pleasing to me. So unwittingly, I can get trapped. अभी 3 दिन पहले एक हमारे मित्र हैं, उनका छोटा उनका बेटा है 15 साल का, और सीवियर साइकिक प्रॉब्लम, मुझे मालूम नहीं था कितनी सीवियर है. तो वो कह रहे थे हॉस्पिटल में था. अच्छा भैया बात तो करेंगे उनसे. तो आया एंड देन आई स्टार्ट टू डू, आई कुड सी दैट my body was getting affected by it. And there was initially a feeling that I should be careful. Then I said, I tried to talk to him affectionately, sat with him, patted him, but he was in acute distress. I couldn't do anything for him. And I could see me getting affected by his extent of his mental derangement. He was in acute distress. And also we were saying, the Rakshas. I tried to talk him out of it. कैसे हो? जो मेरे नाखून बड़े हुए, नाखून बड़े, मैंने काम छोटे कर देता. I got पहले तो माना नहीं. I got hold of his hand and got his. But his thought was so strong and see that he needs to. So the negativity in him spread around. I could see that.
So I have also felt that because of our belief in everything, which is part of the experience of. Sometimes we become negative toward negativity. So this is a place where there is a lot of activity, how we as soon as you come across a person जिसको हमने पास्ट में आपने नेगेटिवली देखी हो, that carrying that.
तो aversion हो गया ना, aversion towards this basic sheer aversion. In the case of the child, I noticed it. I said, he's like my son. What the hell? How does it matter? And the whole thing changed. For me, it changed. Of course, for him, I at least I could comfort his father quite a lot. Make him less agitated. So for a father, it's a horrible thing. Only son and getting into just kind of a problem.
सर ऐसे केसेस में एक गोयनका जी को रिलेट करते हैं स्टोरी जिसमें कोई सज्जन कोमा में थे एंड स्ट्रॉन्ग मेटा वाज गिवन एंड द पर्सन एक्सपीरियंस्ड वाइब्रेशंस एटसेट्रा. No, sure. So what I'm getting at is that in a situation like this, would your strong vibrations have and there is no way of directing it.
I actually believe this is a wrong thing to do. Very strong. मैंने उसमें बुद्धा उसमें भी लिखा था, आपने शायद नोट किया होगा. हमारी आपका जो ग्रुप फल फूल रहा है.
What is wrong? Directing something.
Directing somebody to get metta to somebody and giving metta. I think it's a wrong practice. You should practice metta.
Tell more about
You
that.
should practice metta and spread goodwill to others. But don't think कि मेरी मैत्री से इसको कुछ हो जाएगा और ये ठीक हो जाएगा और ये हो जाएगा. It's a ego in a working in a very subtle way.
And also puts the other one in the trap that please give me metta.
And it has been happening. I have seen. I myself have fallen into the trap. कि आपके साथ बैठ के बहुत अच्छा ध्यान लगता है. I took it seriously. You will do a trap of that kind.
But that's a little unfair, ना? क्योंकि अगर मुझे वास्तव में आपके साथ बैठ के ध्यान अच्छा रहा है,
so that is your problem. Yeah, actually it is my problem.
right?
I took it seriously, meaning I took it as if I was doing something. It's not me doing something. It's you doing something. That is the problem.
Sure, but just saying with a situation like this,
because if you take it personally, that's the key issue is that, let me put it in those, क्या कहना चाहिए,
those strong words, which I like. If I take it seriously personally, then I will be hurt, and the whole tradition will be hurt. It in fact will become a big problem. And then I remember Goenka ji told people, "ये सब छोड़ दो, तुम क्या करते रहते हो?" Himself towards the, I think after 10-15 years, I remember, himself issued a circular to the teachers. These told related to the sum of giving metta to people. Should say, let us practice metta together, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And of course it helps. I think yesterday after the session there, when there was so much, and I could see some people getting into it, we sat quietly and meditated and practiced metta deeply from heart. I felt so happy. I felt so happy. I don't know how others felt. I presume them also felt better than what they were. So the advice of the Buddha, that's how the teaching of the Buddha is helpful. If you study the original teaching, he never mentions that by practicing metta somebody will be better. He never says that. Though he does it. Though when people were ill, he himself went to Moggulayan and Mahakashyap. He sent Ananda to Girimananda. Not for practicing metta. He never says, go and practice metta. He says, okay, go and recite these 10 sannyas. Which is like a big discourse, which will shake you up. In case of Mahakashyap, he recites Bhujanga Sutta. He said, these are the 7 Bhujangas which I have said. Because they are all so perfect people. It is just a question of remembering, these are the bodhis, factors which are already in us. And just remembering them will give them happiness. But he said that I am giving metta. He never said that. So, practicing metta has a tremendous effect, provided it is done impersonally. अगर वो personally करने लगेंगे ना तो बड़ी गड़बड़ हो जाएगी. You do it out of pure volition, may all beings be happy. It gives you joy. So Buddha lists out joys to the practitioner of metta. He mentions those who practice metta, they sleep well, they don't have bad dreams, they get this, in the next life they will be born in Brahma and all that. But he never says that when I practice metta, then this person's illness will go and this will happen, this and this will never say. Nowhere is it written. उससे गलतफहमी होने लगती है. It does not mean that it does not happen. See the paradox there. It does not mean that it does not happen. But it is seen as a part of nature. So nature's doing, not my doing.
Volition की बात है.
Certainly. It's a question of one's impersonal abiding in one personality. Not taking things personally. You practice metta for the well of goodness of everybody. And that includes the person sitting in front of you.
Like one another aspect of it, one is the person who is practicing metta and getting it personally because of me or me giving this metta.
वो subtly हो जाता है.
But there is another problem here, which is the people who want to receive metta, they start to become dependent.
Dependent.
When you get into any problem, you start to say, I need metta from somebody rather than saying that this is my problem, my experience and I take the ownership of it. You start to say there are ways and means out there which are outside me to take care of my suffering.